This video is a brief overview of some of the best new features that are available in Carlson Layout version 1.03. For a full list of every feature that's been added to this version, as well as a changelog of bugs and improvements, you can download the full change list at carlsonsw.com, posted next to the APK installation package. So let's go ahead and get started. Launching the software, I'm going to go ahead and open a job with some nice 3D elements to show the first feature. And I don't need to set up the connection or the coordinate system at this time, so I'll just press done. So looking at Carlson Layout, from the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the pyramid icon. And if we go down to the settings button, which contains all the settings within the software, we'll see a new option under CAD settings for Allow 3D. Now this feature is a beta feature, so it's still under testing, but it is available in version 1.03. So if we turn that on and come back out, what we'll see is in the bottom left-hand corner now where you set your orientation, there's a new option. So I tap here where it says 2D mode, and I have switched over into 3D mode within the software. So now I can still pinch my fingers to move in and out of this drawing, but if I pan my finger across the screen, then what I get is a 3D rotate of the drawing, where I can look a little bit better what's going on in 3D in my drawing. If I find a particular orientation that I really like in 3D mode and I want to stick with, I can use the lock icon in the bottom right-hand corner to lock into this orientation. And at this point, when I move my finger across the screen, I'll just be panning the screen as if I'm in 2D mode. So 3D mode can be used throughout the software, or it can be turned off by pressing again on the orientation button on the left-hand side, which now cycles between compass mode, 2D mode, and 3D mode. So now I'm back to compass mode, where it's using the compass of my data collector to orient the drawing in 2D mode, or I can switch over into 2D mode to see my drawing. The next feature I want to talk about are some new Create features available within the Create menu, and we're going to switch to a different job to do that. I'm going to switch over to this Civil Demo job, which is just a little subdivision that we have, and I'll go ahead and connect to my simulation GPS at this point. Alright, so for within my civil demo job, we'll go to the Create menu, and I'm going to go first to Points from Entities. This is not a new feature, but we have added a bit to it in this version. So if you select an entity from your drawing, maybe I want to pick this house. What's been added here is the ability to create center points on anything I select. So if I turn on the vertex points and the center points, and then when I press the OK button, it's going to go ahead and create a point at every vertex of this entity, as well as point 141 here, which is the center point of this entity that I've selected. And I can use these throughout the software now. They've been added to my job. The next thing I want to mention under the Create menu is the Building Envelope feature. Moving into the building envelope feature, I want to show you some of the various things this can do because it's actually quite more powerful than a building envelope. If I pick an entity from this drawing, this house here, and I press the next button, we move into this feature. The most basic thing that this feature can do is draw the building envelope. So if I turn this on and off, I can draw a building envelope around this property with an offset if I choose to, or just without an offset. So that's the teal line. It will draw that polyline around the property. If I want to turn that off, or I can use that in addition to this next part, I can choose to draw building extensions. Here's an opportunity to draw extensions and perpendicular points on the building that I've selected. And here you can see that I'm drawing both extensions and perpendiculars at an offset of 2 feet. I can turn off perpendiculars and draw just the extension points if I choose. And when I do that, I may want to use this rotate icon to flip the direction of these extension points. So if I turn on both of these, and then the second thing we can do here is add a second offset and a second set of extension and perpendicular points. So you see here that I can turn these on and off, and when I turn them on, I'm actually drawing, if I zoom in here, two sets of extension and perpendicular points that I can use later for staking. So if I want to draw both sets, and I'll hit Create, we're going to go ahead and create all those points and add them to my job. Now for a shortcut, if I go into the Layout menu and I press the Add button, you'll see that Building and Entity are now options on this list. So what these buttons do from within the Layout menu is that you can jump through this all in one step. If you choose Building here, it's going to let you select a building. It's going to create the vertex and the center points if you like, and add them to the stakeout list and start staking automatically. The same with Entity, where I've got them backwards. The same with Entity, where you can add the perpendicular and the extension points and automatically start staking them. So this is just a shortcut from the Layout menu to add points and stake a building very, very quickly. The last thing I want to point out from the Create menu is that if you go to Create and into the Sketch menu now, and if we want to do some sketching on our building, I'll just choose this start point. I'll choose my center point here. If I choose to pull an azimuth or distance from the existing drawing, I can now do that directly from this dialog. So if you'll see here on this angle option where I want to pull the angle of my sketch, if I choose this new button on the far right, that's going to allow me to grab an azimuth from my drawing. So in this case, I'm going to pull it from this line here. It pulls the azimuth 15 degrees, 16 minutes and 9 seconds. I hit accept, and it's pulled that into this dialog. And the same with distances. If I want to pull my length from an existing length on the drawing, I tap the distances button, I pull my length from the drawing, and I accept. So this is a really easy way to sketch off of your existing line work. And I also want to point out that if you want to quickly rotate the azimuth selected here by 90 degrees, the plus 90, minus 90 buttons are available in this dialog. And I can press Create. Just to go over a few more options that are available within the Layout feature now, if you hit the Add button and choose to lay out a line, I'm going to go ahead and pick one from my drawing. Now notice I can switch the direction of this line by pressing the Switch button. And then there's some other options down here for staking a line that you may find useful. If we turn on stationing options, this is where you'll get the ability to define stations and whether you want intervals and segments along your line, and also do an offset to the left or right of the line. So here we're actually not staking the line, we're staking an offset 2 feet from the line. I can switch the direction of that offset using these left and right buttons. And I'm staking intervals along 8 feet. So there's some options there for staking a line. I'm going to turn those off in this case and go ahead and press Done. And from my line stakeout, you can see that if we turn off all the stationing offsets, what we're actually staking is the nearest point on the line. So up in the upper left-hand corner, you'll notice that our navigation icon is actually really small up here on the left, and that's a new setting in the software. So if you go to the Settings menu, we go to Settings, and again, this is context sensitive. I can choose the size of my navigation arrow. Here I've set it to reduced. This is a new option, so we could go to the full-size version, or we can hide that navigation arrow entirely if you don't like to see it and you want to stake purely based on directions. I'm going to go back to full size here. And we can see that the navigation arrow is right back where it was. And I'll shrink it and go to reduced again to get it back up in the corner and out of the way. The other new option I want to show you here under settings is the ability to do line labeling. So what line labeling does is it gives some of the stakeout directions directly onto the graphics of the CAD screen so that we can see a little bit more clearly what we're doing when we stake out a line. So I'm going to turn on line labeling. And you'll see now that some numbers have appeared on my CAD screen. So what these are telling me is that I am 285 feet off of the line, and you can see that's the same as my distance up here in the corner. And then it also shows me the direction to the distance to the endpoint of the line. So the 219 feet to the endpoint of the line from where I'm standing. Now if I were to jump down here, which I can do with my simulator, let's see if we can jump around a bit with the simulator. We've jumped a little bit closer here. You can see that I'm 31 feet from this end of the line. If I come down here to the middle of this line, let's jump right here. Turn off auto zoom. I'm going to jump closer to the middle of the line. You can see now that the labeling is telling me that I'm 0.46 feet off of the line, 15 feet from the left endpoint, and 15 feet from the right endpoint. So I've jumped dead onto the center of that line. So the line labeling tells you not only where you are on the line from the endpoints, but how far you are from it. And if you find that that clutters up the screen a little too much, you can always turn that off again in settings. So that's line labeling. And I'll go ahead and stop this layout. Another new feature that's available in Layout, let's go ahead and stake out a point so we can see it. Go and create this point and stake it out. I'll just filter here and type 131. Select. Is the ability to change a reference. So if I can select a reference point for all my layout directions, if I go into the menu again, I go to settings and I can choose my reference point. So in this case, I'm going to just pick at random another reference point, and that could be any point on my drawing that I want all my layout directions to be referenced to. So you do have the ability to change your stakeout reference within Carlson Layout now. I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel and not go into this. And back out into Layout. Another new feature that's available in 1.03 is the ability to draw line work as you measure. If we tap on the measure button, and we're inside our measure screen now, I can go into the menu in the top right and turn on line work. You'll notice that when I did that, I get the new start line button in the upper left hand corner. If I use this button to measure at any point, it will not only measure, but start a line. So now I'm actively walking along this line, drawing line work as I go. And I can measure again to extend that line. And then whenever I'm ready, I press the stop line button to measure and end the line. So in addition to the start and stop line buttons there, once you've measured a couple points, you'll also see the close polygon button and the close polygon square button appear up in the upper left-hand corner, just to give you a little bit of line work functionality from within the measure screen. The next feature I want to bring to your attention is available from the dashboard. If you tap the gear icon to get back to the dashboard, and we set coordinate system setup, and you'll see here that we give you this coordinate system review at any time to be able to see how your coordinate system is configured. In this case, I'm going to hit change to change it. And you'll see that there's a new download icon on the bottom of the screen to the right of your geoid. All geoids that are in the Carlson database now are available to download from within the software. So I can hit this download button, and it's going to download the metadata. And what I can do now from within the software is enter latitude and longitude or read from the GPS or use an existing point. And it's going to do a search of all the geoids that are available to give me every one that covers my current location, which in this case is Kentucky. So I can see here that these are all the geoids that we have access to that cover the state of Kentucky in my particular location, including the geoid 18, which is the one that most people tend to use. So I can select this, and if I want to press the I icon, I can get a little bit more information about this file, how big it is, including the boundaries. So I'm going to go ahead and press close, and if I press download here, it's going to download the file and set it up for use in my job. So that's geoid download. Back out of here. The next thing I want to bring to your attention is up in the upper left-hand corner under the pyramid icon, we now offer base setup for your RTK survey. So this allows you to set up your base if you're doing an RTK survey. If you tap this, it's halfway down the list. We get a very simple base setup dialog, and the first thing you need to do is select your driver. So I hit the plus icon to select a driver, and we have access to every driver that's in the Carlson software library from within here. I'm going to make a new profile, Sarah's base, and using the Carlson VRX7, I'm going to press connect to connect to that. Next, we have the standard settings that you see and you recognize from rover setup. I can set my antenna, audio mode, and various constellations. And then I go to RTK setup, where I can choose whether I want my corrections to output using the radio or the internal modem. So I'm going to choose the radio and press done, and then I can choose my correction type, which I'm going to choose to be RTCM 3.2. So finally, in order to do my base setup, I need to choose my base position. From this menu, I can choose to do from GPS, where it'll do a GPS average. I can choose from existing point, from a reference file, or manual entry of my base position. So after I've chosen my base position and measured if I need to, I press the configure button to configure my base, and that completes the base setup. Switching over now to some new total station features. If you use the dashboard in the upper left-hand corner, we're going to go ahead and connect to a robotic total station here called Eric's Robot. And if you hit the gear icon, we can go into the settings for that robot. And you'll see here all the settings that you recognize from the robot, but a new one has been added for Allow Internal GPS Search. What this feature does is use the internal GPS of your tablet to collect points alongside your total station survey and do an auto localization in the background so that when we get a good idea of where you are based on the GPS position, we can use that GPS to enhance your GPS search your total station search capability. So you'll be able to, from the top bar up here where you see the binoculars, there will be a new option called GPS search that turns the total station to the location of the GPS as it knows from the localization, and then does a really quick search to latch on to the prism. This can be a very fast way of searching for your prism, and it can also help you in situations where you have multiple prisms on the site and you want to turn to the one that's on particular on your pole. So if I turn this on here, I get a couple more options. One is to ignore GPS search elevations, which can be useful if you aren't really confident in the vertical coming off your GPS and you have a fairly flat location. You might want to turn off your elevations and just turn horizontally for your GPS search. If you do choose to leave that on, as I am here, you need to define the offset between your prism and your GPS. So this is the vertical offset between where your tablet is sitting on your pole and where your prism is at the top of the pole. So I can press Done to turn this on and connect to my total station. And from this point forward, up in the top bar where I've got my search icon, you'll see a new, well, it's not here yet because I'm not localized yet, but once it's available, you should have a GPS search option in that list that allows you to do GPS search. And the last thing I want to point out is from the pyramid in the upper left-hand corner, if you go to Export now, we have a new export type that you may find useful. You can choose Google Earth Export, and we can export KML and KMZ files for Google Earth. So this is just a brief overview of the new features that are available. We encourage you to try it out and try all these new features for yourself. And again, the change log with every new feature and every change made to this version is available at carlsonsw.com.